The moment Caitlin Clark stepped into that December 2025 Durham gym, the universe felt like it inhaled through its teeth, because everyone in that building, from the rookies pretending not to stare to the veterans clutching their hierarchy like a broken rosary, understood that the person who just walked in was not some hopeful invitee crawling back for forgiveness, but the walking, breathing, sold-out every arena supernova they tried to exile, now returning not to ask for a seat at the table but to flip the whole table over and make the chairs kneel. The cold gym air clung to her hoodie like frost on steel, banners of Olympic glory hung overhead like judgmental ghosts, and the floor still smelled like fresh varnish mixed with old politics. Stack after stack of pristine red, white and blue jerseys lined a long table, the kind of solemn layout meant to remind everyone that USA basketball is a cathedral, not a democracy. Coaches whispered. Staffers fidgeted. Even the walls felt tense, like they knew something massive was about to snap. Caitlin stood dead center, ponytail sharp as a blade, hands shoved casually in her pockets like she owned the oxygen in the room, and the silence trembled as a staffer approached holding two jerseys, one mythical, untouched, the number everyone knew belonged to her legacy, and the other a limp piece of polyester stamped with the number 17, a number that meant as much to her as dust. The staffer wore a tight, rehearsed smile, the kind adults practice in mirrors when they're about to deliver disrespect disguised as protocol, and murmured the line they had rehearsed all week. Caitlin, we've assigned you 17 for camp. Seniority matters here. You understand. And when the sentence landed, the gym didn't just quiet, it flatlined. Not a breath, not a cough, not even the hum of those cheap overhead lights dared to interrupt the moment. A veteran in the corner literally dropped her coffee. A rookie's phone glowed beneath a bench, because even if they weren't supposed to be recording, history demands witnesses. Everyone waited for Caitlin to flinch, to bow her head, to swallow the insult like generations before her had been forced to do. Instead, she did something far more devastating. She stayed perfectly, terrifyingly calm. She looked at the number, then at the staffer's trembling hands, then at the head coach standing 10 feet away like a guard dog at the gates of Olympus, arms crossed, jaw locked, eyes daring her to challenge the old order. And in the softest, coldest voice a 23-year-old has ever used to dismantle an entire power structure, she said 4 words they were never prepared to hear: I'm not wearing that. The sentence cracked through the gym like a gunshot. Gasps rolled across the room. Someone whispered, did she just? And another, younger, braver voice confirmed, yeah, she did. Because this moment wasn't about fabric. It wasn't about tradition. It wasn't about some fake hierarchy built to protect egos older than the internet. This was about principle. Identity. Integrity. This was about every girl who had ever been told to shrink, to wait politely, to dim her brilliance until someone with a clipboard decided she was allowed to shine. Number 22 wasn't just Caitlin's brand. It was her rebellion, her empire, her war cry. It was the symbol that dragged women's basketball out of dusty gyms and into packed 20,000-seat arenas. It was the number parents fought scalpers for. The number entire cities chanted before tip-off. The number little black, brown, immigrant, queer, small-town, overlooked girls tattooed on their arms because she made them believe they belonged, too. And now USA basketball was asking her to abandon it like a misbehaving child. To bow her head. To play nice. To accept the message behind the message, in our house, you kneel first. But Caitlin Clark has never been built for kneeling. She was built for staring down giants until they blink first. The head coach stepped forward, trying to hide the earthquake happening behind her eyes. She expected resistance, yes, but not defiance wrapped in steel. Caitlin's posture didn't change, shoulders loose, chin steady, but the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. She lifted the jersey like it was a surrender flag someone was trying to trick her into saluting. And that's when she said the line that detonated the entire foundation of the old guard's power: give me my number, or I'm gone. Shock swallowed the gym. The assistants looked at each other like they'd just watched someone punch a hole through the sun. Veterans suddenly found their shoelaces very interesting. Rookies pretended not to breathe. Every political chess piece in that room froze mid-move. Phones under benches lit up again because everyone knew this moment would leak. It had to. It was too big, too raw, too symbolic. This wasn't drama. This was revolution. Because if she walked out of that gym, the consequences would be nuclear, ratings would nosedive, sponsors would panic, networks would riot, fans would revolt, and USA Basketball, the very institution that dismissed her 6 months earlier, would be exposed as the engine sabotaging its own future. But if she stayed and bowed to their petty power play? She stares at the head coach, at the staffer, at the veterans gripping the last strands of their authority, and in her calm defiance she tells them the truth they've been avoiding since the second she entered the league. You can't tame what already owns the world outside your walls. Phones vibrated under benches. Staffers whispered frantically. Assistants stepped out to make calls. Veterans looked at each other like, is this actually happening? Because deep down, they knew this wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't entitlement. It wasn't ego. It was justice. It was a woman reclaiming the identity they tried to steal from her twice, once when they snubbed her from the Olympics, and now again when they tried to hand her a number meant to make her smaller. But Caitlin Clark is not small. She is the earthquake. She is the fault line. She is the reminder that the future doesn't wait for permission. And in that frozen gym, as silence tightened like a noose around the old guard's authority, everyone finally realized the truth. The girl they tried to humble came back holding the match that could burn their entire rulebook to ash, and she wasn't afraid to light it. Imagine the sound of a fault line splitting beneath your feet, the kind of deep, ancient crack that doesn't just disturb the ground, it redefines the map. That's exactly what happens in the Durham gym the second Cheryl Reeves' words hit the air like a cold slap delivered with the confidence of someone who hasn't realized the kingdom she built is already collapsing under its own contradictions. The lights overhead buzz a little louder, flickering just enough to make the moment feel like a scene the universe itself is hesitating to witness. Caitlin stands there, utterly unmoved, not a single muscle twitching, the embodiment of a storm that's tired of being warned about boundaries it has every intention of drowning. Her ponytail hangs perfectly still, too still, like even the air is afraid to touch her. Across from her, Reeves' jaw locks, that trademark blend of control and calculation slipping for the briefest flicker of a second, because what she's looking at in front of her isn't some wide-eyed rookie desperate for approval. She's facing a generational force who learned long ago that the most terrifying people in any room are the ones who have nothing left to prove. And that's exactly who Caitlin Clark is right now, a walking, breathing contradiction to every system that believed it could shape her, silence her, or shove her into a role that fit neatly inside the hierarchy they worship like religion. But the hierarchy is trembling. And the veterans sense it before the coaches do. You can see it in the way the seasoned players lean back just slightly, subtle. Instinctive, like soldiers stepping out of the blast radius before the explosion hits. They've seen locker room wars. They've seen ego collisions. They've survived roster cuts, endorsement droughts, and coaches who weaponize silence like a scalpel. But they have never seen someone walk into Team USA camp and press a blade to the power structure's throat without raising her voice above conversational calm. That calm is what rattles them most. Caitlin doesn't shake, doesn't tremble, doesn't swallow hard. She breathes like a woman who's been waiting for this exact fight. A woman whose entire life has sharpened her into a scalpel too precise to break and too sharp to dull. And Cheryl feels that. You can see it. She tries to hold posture, tries to keep her smirk, tries to play the role she's perfected over the years, the iron-willed architect of an empire built on discipline, tradition, and a quiet understanding that legends don't get challenged. Legends are obeyed. Legends are feared. Legends define the rules. But today the rules are cracking like thin glass under a hammer. Today a 23-year-old superstar is rewriting the script in real time, and Cheryl Reeve, Hall of Fame mind, legendary coach, commander of dynasties, is watching her control slip grain by grain like sand through her fingers. She steps closer, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor, every step an attempt to regain ground. But Caitlin doesn't back up. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't even blink. She just watches, calm, clinical, almost pitying, the same way she watches defenders before pulling up from 30 feet and ripping out their confidence. "You think a number defines you here?" Reeve asks, voice steady, but the corners of her tone fray like frayed rope under strain. This program doesn't bow to personas. It shapes players into champions. Nobody walks in wearing a crown. And Caitlin's laugh, soft, quiet, devastating, cuts through the gym like a blade dipped in ice. Not disrespectful. Not careless. Worse. It's the kind of laugh that tells you she's already 5 steps ahead, already seen the ending, already made peace with whatever collateral damage comes next. She lifts her eyes and meets Reeve's gaze with a level of clarity so sharp it borders on dangerous. "I'm not asking for a crown," she says. "I'm asking for the number I built a movement with. The number millions associate with this team before I ever stepped inside this gym." Reeve's jaw tightens. A staffer behind her inhales sharply, realizing the line they thought they were drawing has turned into a chasm swallowing their entire strategy. A younger assistant tries to intervene, voice shaking just enough to betray the fear buzzing under her ribs. "Caitlin, this isn't personal. Everyone starts fresh here. Everyone earns from zero." Caitlin turns her head, slow and steady, toward the assistant. And there's something lethal in her eyes, not anger, not defiance, something worse, truth sharpened into a weapon. Zero is a number for people the world hasn't seen yet. I didn't walk in from obscurity. I walked in from selling out every arena in your country. I walked in from doubling ratings the second I touched the league. I walked in from carrying the future of this sport on my back while this program pretended I didn't exist. A veteran in the far corner lowers her eyes. She doesn't disagree. She can't. Everyone knows the truth. They all watched the Olympics ride Caitlin's popularity while pretending her absence wasn't an earthquake tearing through the fanbase. They all saw the fallout. They all felt the pressure. And now here she is. Standing in front of them, demanding nothing more radical than the right to walk through the door without being stripped on arrival. But the old guard isn't built to bend. And Reeve knows that if she yields here, even once, the entire hierarchy of Team USA collapses. Every precedent shatters. Every unwritten rule dissolves. She can feel the weight of decades pressing against her spine. The responsibility to keep order, to maintain legacy, to preserve the chain of command that defined generations of champions. Her voice drops to a dangerous whisper. This isn't the WNBA. This isn't Iowa. You're not bigger than Team USA. Silence detonates across the gym. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just heavy. Suffocating. The kind of silence that makes your lungs feel too small. And then Caitlin speaks, quiet, crisp, merciless. "I know I'm not bigger than Team USA. But I am big enough that you don't get to shrink me to fit your comfort." It hits like a meteor. You can actually hear someone mutter, "Jesus," under their breath. A staffer's clipboard slips from his hand and clatters against the floor. Nobody moves to pick it up. Nobody breathes. Because everyone in that room knows exactly what has just happened. Caitlin Clark didn't just refuse a number. She didn't just challenge tradition. She didn't just stand her ground. She dismantled the idea that Team USA exists beyond the influence of the fans, the culture, the era that birthed her. She forced the empire to acknowledge the world outside its walls. A world she built. A world that will follow her no matter what crest she wears on her chest. Reeve feels it. Deeply. Painfully. She steps back, as if the floor itself has shifted under her. Her mouth opens, ready to fire back, ready to deliver the lecture that usually ends these rebellions before they begin. But nothing comes out, not because she's speechless, but because she realizes every word she uses will be twisted into fuel for the wildfire that's already roaring across social media the second those hidden phones hit record. She is fighting a battle that ended the second Caitlyn walked in. And she knows it. But Caitlyn isn't done. Not even close. She takes a step forward, not aggressive, not hostile, simply inevitable. "You don't get to erase what I built," she says, voice steady as bedrock. "And you don't get to pretend the future of women's basketball isn't already here. I'm not wearing 17. I'm not starting from zero. I've earned every inch of this space. And I'm not letting anyone carve pieces off me just to keep the old guard comfortable." The room trembles. The hierarchy cracks. The future shifts. And for the first time in a long time, Team USA feels small, not because it is, but because the world outside has grown too big, too loud, too unstoppable for anyone to contain. This isn't a conflict. It's a coup. This isn't a disagreement. It's a reckoning. This isn't just Caitlyn Clark demanding her number. It's Caitlyn Clark demanding that the empire either evolve or crumble underneath her feet.